Richard Solomon, Kerry Kearney in the studio, and that was a great song. Oh, so what were we listening to?
That was Shaking Like Jelly.
Okay, and who is that? A cover or is that?
No, that's one of us.
That's a great.
Yeah, the album is it's pretty much like 90% our own music. A couple of songs just to have a little classic.
That had a great old blues feel to it.
It was a Chicago type of thing like that. It was a shuffle, like that they call it. Yeah.
All right. So before the break, we were talking. You give me this great story about the Doors. Who were your influences? Like, okay, let me ask you this: do you remember the first 45, 33 that you remember buying with your own money, not a present, that you actually affirmatively went out and bought?
It was Hey Jude.
Ah, the
45.
Beatles. Yeah. Okay.
I remember the day I did it. I think it was like A&S or something like that. I remember my mother. We would.
I used to go to Corvettes.
Bambergers. Yeah, words out of the past. But yeah, I remember going there. I remember getting the 45. I remember seeing it on TV. It was on.
Sullivan? Was it Sullivan?
I think it was, or David Frost had it on.
Okay.
And they did it. It's supposed to be live, and the whole audience got up. Like all of a sudden, they were around them. They're all over the Beatles at the end doing that that part. You know, I mean, it's pretty cool. But I remember hearing the song and being like really digging it. I remember seeing the Beatles on. I mean, I was about 3 when the Beatles actually came out. I was born in '60, so. I mean, but I do remember. It's funny too. I tell a story a lot about this. Is that being 3 years old, I have nothing to gauge anything on. I don't know what was before that. So, I mean, there was Elvis, of course, and there was like Frank Sinatra, and go way back to whatever Rudy Valley, for God's sakes, way back in the 20s. But it's like I had nothing to gauge the Beatles on, but I knew something was very, very special, and that's how powerful they are. Because I had nothing to say, to really gauge it against. To go say, you know what I mean? So in that sense, and that was my first really things that really blew me away was the Beatles. In a lot of ways as a kid.
Now the Beatles were influenced very much by the blues, but where did your love
for the blues
come from?
My brother had a really, really great collection. I'm the youngest of 3 other brothers, 4 guys in the family. My oldest brother, he was born in 1950. One was born in 53. One was born in 55. So in the 60s, I had the greatest, album collection, whatever you want to say, but it wasn't even mine. It was theirs. And my dad was a tinkerer, so we had this Heath kit, it was called, and he made this big speaker. It was a mono speaker, an Macintosh receiver we had, Macintosh with the tubes and stuff, and we had a turntable. And he was always like, influencing us on, get records, whatever. He was into like jazz and classical music. But my brothers were out, as soon as something came out brand new, they had it like that, you know what I mean? So we had like hundreds of albums of everything you could think of. And a lot of it was blues, it was surf music, it was folk music my brother liked, doo-wop music, everything, every brothers, everything like that. It was amazing. And I remember one time I was at the Cream a lot. I'm listening to Cream, and my brother came in one day. I was listening to the Layla album, actually. And he came in, he said, hold on a second, let me do this for you. So he took the album off and put B.B. King, Live at the Regal on. It's a live album from '64. And he put it on, I was like, wow, it sounds like Eric. And he goes, no. Eric sounds like him. So what I did was from that day, I went back and listened to what Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page, what their influences were, and the Allman Brothers. What did they listen to? So I found out. So instead of me getting the education from them, I got the education of what they listened to. So I got straight across. And I found myself being a better player because of it. I understood where it was. A lot of guys want to play fast, they want to play this or that, but there's a mood there. And that mood is from Robert Johnson and Mississippi John Hurt, like I was saying, and Elmore James and all these guys, B.B. King, of course. You know what I mean? And B.B. King, I could tell, if you say I can name that tune in one note, I could hear that one note and I can tell you it's B.B. King. That's how individual that man is. Amazing how he was. And I got to play with him 3 times in our career.
Okay, please elaborate.
I got a phone call from, it was right after the hurricane actually came, Sandy, and I was pretty much devastated where I was, and then Breezy Point. I got a phone call, we have an opener at the Westbury Music Fair with B.B. King. Would you like to play it? Why didn't you even ask me if I want to play it for him? I was stunned, I was dumbfounded. I was like, oh my God. And so we went there, and it was amazing because he was sick at the time. He was in a wheelchair. He was still okay. He still play a bit.
He was hanging in.
He was hanging in, definitely. And so I was backstage. We did a little sound check. Unbelievable. It was in the round. There was 3,000 people, sold out, the whole thing. And so we're back. We're having dinner and stuff. And I see a couple of guys walk off his bus, his almost like his mafia guys, his men. You know what I mean? These proud African American guys in these beautiful suits, taking care of the king. You know what I mean? So you walk off the bus. They're walking, and Wolf walks on a little stand and the guitar. He's got it like a holy sepulcher, like walking down the aisle of like a church, like the Pope. And he's walking down with it. I'm looking at him like, oh my God, that's it. And so he walked by me. I didn't get a chance to say hello to him. I felt a little bit, I didn't want to get in his way, you know what I mean? So he walked by, and there was the king. There was him. So we did our set. Like I said, it was, by the second song, it was completely full. And we did a really, really unbelievable set. It was great. It was fantastic. We sold so many CDs that night. People saying, who are these guys? Blah, blah, blah. And a lot of friends came down and stuff, too. And then when he played, he gave us kudos. He said, how about Kerry Kearney? What do you think about him? Blah, 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 all that stuff. So it was great. So after the show, I said to myself, I really feel, I have a lot of respect for him and blah, blah, blah. I've always had it. I'm glad I didn't say hello to him. I'm just a little sick. So the next day, I'm going on Facebook, and my drummer has a picture of him sitting in his lap. You know what I mean? He's like, he said, I knew the band. I'm like, I couldn't even say hello to the guy. Here you are, hanging out with BB. It was great, though. But it was amazing. We did the Great South Bay with him. I also did the Paramount with him, which is fantastic. That was really, really great, too. You know what I mean? But the Great South Bay, that's when he was really, it was probably a few months before he passed, and that was it. You know what I mean? He was really, it was awful that night, actually. That's how bad it was. But it's funny. It's like Bob Dylan. I saw Bob Dylan twice in my life. And I the first time I saw him, this is going 30-something years ago, I left. I mean, listen, I love Bob Dylan. I think he's great. But something about it, it just didn't really get to me. It was freezing at Jones Beach. Santana opened. I mean, everybody's like, jumping around like a bunch of, screwballs. All of a sudden, Bob Dylan came out, and it was like, he did a 10-minute, solo song. I was like, oh, God. When it was freezing. So, anyway, but you're seeing like an icon. You're seeing something. That's what you're paying tickets for. And to this day, he's still doing it.
Yeah.
But just 35 years ago I left. I can't imagine today.
The Endless Tour. I think it's called the Never-Ending Tour.
It's unbelievable.
So who else have you seen? Did you ever see Stevie Ray Vaughan or Muddy Waters?
I never saw them. I saw, let me think, who was really, really great. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you two people I saw that you probably never even heard of that blew me away. I mean, I saw Clapton about 90 times. I've seen all, I went to his Crossroads festivals. I saw everybody was playing on that thing. But there was a guy, it was back in around 78, 79. There was a place called Rockaways. Kind of like my father's place in Rockaway Beach, right? So
my office is in Lawrence, so I know the area well.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's a Dunkin' Donuts now, actually. This building that was there. So anyway, a friend of mine and I, we had nothing to do one night. It's like a Wednesday night. We were in school. We were hanging out. So school night. We said, listen, Robert Gordon's playing things. He plays like rockabilly stuff, right? And I know Robert Gordon's playing at my father's place. So.
Yes, and he has played already.
Yes. Yeah. So I went down, and maybe 25 people showed up. It was like in the middle of the week. It was probably raining. So I'm standing there watching the stage. I'm like really close. And in about the second or third song, the guitar player was, my jaw was hitting the ground. I couldn't believe what I was watching. You know what I mean? Because I never saw anything like it before in my life. And he played exactly the way I wanted to play, watching this guy play. And I was a young teenager. And the guy next to me looked at me, and he came over to me. I didn't know who the guy was. And he goes, is this guy like the best guitar player you've ever seen? Like, what are we watching? I was like, yeah, this is unbelievable. And his name was Danny Gatton, his name was. And Danny Gatton did play at my father's place and stuff. And it was amazing. And the sad thing about him is that he had taken his life, like a long time, about 30 years ago. And it was an eye-opener. I swear to God, I went home. I plugged my guitar in. I didn't get out of the room for a week. I was so influenced by it. I was so blown away by it.
What was it about his style that really brought something out in you?
You know what it was? It was like watching like Scotty Moore from Elvis Presley or one of those guys, like on like some kind of really heavy-duty acid or something. Like something you would just like, I mean, inspired by it. I shouldn't say drugs inspire you, but it was like this.
Deep.
He took it to another realm, and he played old instruments. He played an old Telecaster. People that understand guitars out there. He played an old amp. And he everything, his tone, the way he played, everything. He was just really amazing to watch it close up, and nobody knew about it. And then, about a month later, on the cover of Guitar Player magazine, to me that was like a Bible. I'd read that, I'd go out and I'd buy records of people I'd read about, you know what I mean? On the front page was the friend of the Opera mask of the sky behind it. It said the world's most unknown guitar player, and it was him. It was Danny Gatton, yeah. Fantastic. He played what was it? Place in the city, Lone Star Cafe. He played a lot. All those places he played all the time. But he was always, but he was one of those guys that people kind of knew. A lot of musicians. He was a musician. He was like the.
He was a guitarist.
He was big time. Yeah, he was like that. Yeah, and a lot of guys like Hot Two and all those guys. He was in that kind of realm of what was going on, in that kind of like phase of what's happening. But and the funny thing is, what his day job was, he fixed old cars. He like souped them up or something like that in Maryland. That's where he lived. You know, and it was one of those things. It was so sad when the funny thing is, I told friends of mine, I couldn't stop talking about him for months and months and months, and he played there again. I said, we got to go see him. We got to go. I must have brought 100 people with me, and he had a different guitar player with him that night. He didn't have Danny Gatton. And I was like, oh, my God, I feel so bad. But that was it. And there was one other person I saw one time.
Yeah, so who's the second person?
The second guy was a folk guitar player, and I had an album by him. His name was Tom Paley. He was with the New City Ramblers, I think they were called. They were like this folk from like the late 50s in that whole Dylan thing, that whole resurgence, right? And I used to live in California, and I was doing laundry at a laundromat, and I saw this little flyer at the Lagunitas school, like day school, was he's going to play. And he must have been in this little room he's going to play in. And so I told my friend I was at the time, I said, we got to go see him. It was like during the week again. We went out there. And he came out, and he's kind of sitting around. He's drinking a cup of coffee, waiting for people to come in. Maybe 25 people showed up for a little $5 to get in, whatever. And he sat there like this far away. And he just played, and it wasn't like he was doing like virtuosity. It was just so great. It was just so, I can't really explain it, how good it was. Something hits you, you see it, and you're like, oh my God, it's amazing. But it wasn't like he was just playing and singing. And I didn't play I played my guitar for a week. Just watching that, strumming guitar, and it was unbelievable. You know.
So who else had that kind of impact on you, where you had sort of a pivot,
right,
where all of a sudden it's like, you know, in many ways you had like a master class in front of you, and then you decided to do a little self-study.
Right.
What other moments in your life were like that, where there was something that you saw and you pivoted? So obviously we had the Beatles was like an aha moment.
Right.
And then these two great guitar moments.
Like unknowns in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That's what you get. Well, definitely Eric Clapton, definitely Cream. My brother was big into that stuff. Like I said, we had the greatest, collection around. And me as a little kid, it was like, when they used to go out of the house, I'd be like sneaking things in there, listening to the Grateful Dead and everything else that he had. So I put on, I put on Cream, and on Wheels of Fire, obviously the Crossroads. And what's funny is that song's about 3 minutes long because it's made for radio. And you can hear there was little edits in it at the end. All of a sudden he's playing, and all of a sudden it shuts till he starts singing again, and the whole thing like changes right there on the recording. Supposedly there's 11 stanzas of guitar solos on some cutting room floor of that song.
We gotta make some calls.
Let me tell you something. From this day, it has to be. It's like finding the Holy Grail or something like that somewhere. It's finding, King Solomon's Mines. It's like it's there, but it's almost it's folklore. You know what I mean?
I remember when I was going to the State University of New York at Binghamton, and one of the whole.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
who's famous from Binghamton? The famous band from Binghamton.
Well, the Grateful Dead played in 1970.
No, but who was the famous guy who came out of there? Who was born there?
Let's see, Paul Reiser. He ended up doing Mad About You. He was kind of famous. I mean,
Rod Serling.
Well, no, he didn't go to Binghamton University, but he came from Binghamton.
Yes. He came from Binghamton.
Yeah. In fact, I think
the Corningware, I think, is from that too.
I think Rod Serling High School is in Binghamton because I think they named the high school after him.
Because when I hear about that, I think about that, and that's him. Yeah.
So one of the guys in my corridor had Derek and the Dominoes in concert, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
Live album, yeah.
I'm like, it was one of those things you just couldn't find anywhere.
Yeah.
And I remember this guy, I think his name was Ed. He was like, "Oh, you really want it?" I bought it for like $8, but like it was like the greatest bargain I ever had in my life. It was, because it was like one of those things that you just couldn't find in the record stores. Yeah.
There's not much footage of them either. I would love to see those, like a concert live. Like I know that they filmed Phil Maurice. They used to film it a lot, and they're ones you can go on to find things. There's one really great one of what's his name? I can't think of his name now. How do you like that? We have Dead Air. Van Morrison.
Oh, okay.
There's a great Van Morrison one, like 1970. It's amazing, actually, from there. But they have to have a film of them I would say. And there's a film of them actually on the here we go again. I'm starting to forget things now. On what's his name's Johnny Cash's show.
Yes.
There's a show them playing like that. It's pretty wild.
I remember that.
Yeah.
All right. Richard Solomon, Kerry Kearney. What is your website, by the way?
It's kerrykearney.com, official.com. kerrykearneyofficial.com.
All right. So we'll be right back. We got a little bit more radio to go. Don't go anywhere.